Jackson.
And I'm Debbie Jansen.
And we are two motor-mouth mama bears willing to discuss current events with honesty and boldness.
Oh, yes, we are. We are truth warriors. No lie is too big, no deception too small.
And we are sticking to the truth.
I'm sticking to the truth, Julene. Oh, my goodness, honey. I hear that Washington, D.C., where you live, is in crazy mode. I hope you can stay on a calm trail and out of the messes. What are you doing this week?
Well, the masses are starting to roll in. The hotels, I think, are almost full to capacity. I think the Jackson Hostel, where I live, is almost near capacity. Every room has been booked. Every bed will have someone sleeping in it. Hundreds of thousands of people are getting ready to converge. I've heard 200,000 from the Washington Post. I've heard 500,000 on other news sources. They always undercount the Republican presidents. I don't know why in Washington, D.C. they do that, but there'll be so many things going on, balls, rallies, receptions. I mean, the swearing in, of course, is the big event on Monday, the 20th. And it's every 4 years. It's a pretty big, major celebration, if I do say so myself, in Washington, D.C., where I live.
Oh, wow, that sounds so exciting. And it sounds like you will be busy. And you better take pictures. I want to see some pictures. Oh, my goodness, that sounds fantastic. And I would love to go to things like that. I'm not really too good with the cold. Is it going to be cold there this week?
Yes. It's going to be freezing. I was just out with my dog this morning and it was 22 degrees.
Oh,
and I'm like,
no.
it's supposed to be, it was 22 degrees, but on my weather app, it said it feels like 15 degrees. So back in Washington, D.C., where we have a lot of humidity, it feels actually colder than it actually is because of humidity. So next Monday, I think they're saying it's going to be a balmy 30 degrees. It will probably feel like 20 degrees. And so I've been thinking about how I'm going to stay warm when I'm out there for several hours, because you got to get there early. And, you know, it usually lasts the swearing in about an hour, because President Trump is also going to, you know, the swearing in is only a few minutes, but his speech is what will take a little bit of time. So I think I'm ordering
He's a good talker.
He is. We'll see if, you know, if he's inspired to keep going while all of his listeners are like little frozen icicles, but we'll see. We'll see.
Okay. Oh, well, that sounds wonderful. I'm so happy for you and happy that you can go. Now, I want to talk about something that we'll probably take this up in detail next week, but real quick, let's talk about, did you watch the Hegseth confirmation hearing?
A little bit.
I had it on while I was doing some stuff in the house, and I just couldn't believe it. The Dems couldn't ask questions without being hateful and mean and angry and on a mission to destroy the man as a person, rather than simply discuss his qualifications or what he might do. Senator Kaine was overboard in trying to paint Hegseth as unworthy of the job because he had an affair when his daughter was only 2 months old. And yes, that is terrible. But Kaine pushed so hard that Pete finally made him say the child's name and told Senator Kaine that his daughter was a child of God and he loved her very much. And Kaine went on to be so bad that at one point, Senator Mullen, Republican for Oklahoma, told everyone off. Now, I couldn't believe it. He started off with, I'm a Christian and I believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. But I think it's so hypocritical of senators, especially on the other side, to be talking about Pete's qualifications, and yet your qualifications aren't any better. That's what he was saying to the Senate. Mm-hmm. He went on to point out that he knew many of the senators had shown up to cast late night votes. And this I personally didn't want to know. But they had showed up after they'd been drinking, and some were even drunk when they cast their votes. And he said, have any of you guys asked them to step down and resign from their job? He went on to point out that many of the residing senators had been through divorces and cheated on their wives and lied and committed other unscrupulous acts. And he finally said, you aren't perfect and neither are we. Now, my biggest problem, Julie, and I want to hear your side of the story, is with the Democratic Party is that they don't possess a lot of kindness or compassion for anyone that is not aligned with them. They don't believe in forgiveness or rules of civility. If they see you as their enemy, they will viciously attack, even if it means they lie, tell deceptions, and incite others to be mean as well. Yesterday, I felt like they just pushed the limit. Women senators were screaming at Hegseth as if their hair was on fire, and they looked less intelligent and more like an out-of-control child or an idiot than a revered statesperson. They're senators. It was disgusting. I don't understand why we always see this from the Democrats. And I know some Republicans have, but most of the time Republicans kind of tone it down a little bit. They fuss about the possibility, Democrats fuss about the possibility of Republicans being out of control. But when it comes down to the meeting, it's the Democrats that actually lose their minds. Mm-hmm. And for a person like me, I get it. You see, I see their true nature. I can see what they are doing, and that makes me never want to vote for them. So, Julene, help me. I'm just floored.
Well, I didn't get the privilege of being able to watch it the whole from beginning to end like you did, but it sounded like, to be honest with you, I think, it revealed kind of the out of control emotional state by which they govern and operate sometimes, some of these Democrats. I actually, the commentary I saw on it, it sounded like Hegseth wiped the floor with some of those emotional, out of control, senators. And he kept his cool. He was quick-witted. He had a sense of humor. He was strong. He was forceful when he needed to be. And isn't that human nature that when you can't attack maybe his experience or policy or, the actual fruits of the person, then you attack their personality, right? And that's kind of what we saw. Or that you go after some of their failings, which we all have. And he clearly has made some mistakes. He has been immoral at times, and he admits that. But, he's not going to stand by and also be falsely accused like they were trying to do as well. And, I think the thing that we love about, especially, as we're in the Bible and we study, the atonement of Jesus Christ and repentance and forgiveness. I love his journey back to God, and he's been very open, about some of his past sins and transgressions. And he's also stood up when, once again, he's falsely accused. But, you clearly see, and he's witnessed and borne witness of the forgiveness and redemption that he has received. And I once heard someone say, a repentant soul is a victorious soul. And we saw that in him yesterday. A repentant soul is a victorious soul. And, Satan always wants to remind you of your past, but but our Savior wants to remind us of our future and what we can become, and not always look back and learn from our mistakes, but move forward as a son and daughter of God. And I think he's a really good example of that. What do you think, Deb?
Oh, I love it. Thank you for that bit of sanity. Repentant soul is a victorious soul.
Yeah.
Where were you yesterday when I was stomping around the den?
I was out walking the dog, freezing my tail off.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I'll put that issue aside for now. Although we have a lot of these sessions to go through, so we may have to revisit this. But we also have something real important to discuss today, and that's the fires in California.
Mm.
Oh, they're breaking my heart. The stories that I've heard, and I just cry and feel sick to my stomach when I hear some of them. And to look at the devastation, it's not like a neighborhood of problems, it's a town that has just been totally obliterated and is gone. To look at the devastation and debris is just heartbreaking. And to hear the stories is just even worse. But I look at all the facts, and there is no way not to blame the California elites. Ron grew up on my husband grew up on a 365-acre farm. And even on that small property, it was important to manage underbrush. And Miss City Girl looks at the problem that when I went out to visit Ron in Iowa when we were dating and then afterwards getting married, I would ask him, why are you doing all this all the time? And he said, because you have to, or else if a fire came this way, it would not only take our crops on the land, but it would take our house and everything else. So it's just common sense. You and I were talking about this problem before the program about the great devastation California is going through because the administration didn't prepare. So it's not only that they didn't take care of the land, they didn't have the water ready, the fire trucks weren't there, just they didn't have a program in place to take care of this large fire, and yet they have large fires every year. So I don't know if there are precedents for this type of legislation, that maybe this is what a governor and a mayor should do, even though I would think that was common sense. I don't know. But putting a plan in place to be sure everyone survives a fire or other disaster should be a mayor and a governor's main priority. Our state should be required to protect us from hostile harm, but also from harm caused by negligence, right?
Well, absolutely, Debbie. I mean, what we're seeing in California, I think, really calls into play the irresponsibility of the leaders of the state of California to put millions of Californians in harm's way, and these vulnerable and heartbreaking situations. It's just really hard to see, but you have to dig down and say, why is this going on? And then as you see, last year in 2024, millions, I think I heard $100 million of fire protection was reallocated. Now, where did that money go? Some people speculate it went to the influx of immigrants they're allowing into the state. Other reports say that, their firefighting equipment some of it was sent to Ukraine. And the fire chief admits that these budget cuts are hampering the emergency response, hampering the response that we're seeing now. So it is just painful, I think, to hear their woeful explanations from, Governor Newsom and the mayor and the fire chief. And I mean, hopefully, Deb, it's going to wake up the citizens of California, and they're going to be moving forward in the future much more wise and really ask the important questions, when they go to the ballot, the voting booth to vote for their next, governor, their next mayor.
I certainly hope so, because I can't imagine the individuals that are trying to make sense of this.
Yeah.
Why did this happen? I heard that a young man was bedridden. I think he was in his 20s, and his father wouldn't leave him alone. The fire was coming, and the daughter begged him, "Let's go, Dad, let's go." And the dad refused. "I'm not going to leave. He can't move. I need to be with him." And since they couldn't pick up the disabled young man and move him with them, Dad stayed with his son, and they both died together. How awful. I mean, my mind just goes crazy thinking about what they went through. All the different little pieces of here it comes, and now it's in the yard, and now it's on the roof. And I'm not trying to make the rest of you feel bad. I mean, that just plays in my head. And I think how awful. We need to make sense of this, but we need people to do their jobs so this doesn't happen.
Yeah. Well, there has to be some accountability when the fires, the dust settles a little bit. But, in the meantime, we're seeing these calamities before us often enough. With technology today, it's almost like we have front row seats to, all the earthquakes and hurricanes and fires
Yeah.
and wars and everything going on. And it really, it's depressing. It's sorrowful. And you do think, how do we make sense of this? But, I know we've all had heartache and, trials and things that have just like, almost done us in. And I've taught my kids, look, these things are going to happen. And so are we going to allow them to make us bitter, or are we going to allow them to make us better, right? Are we going to curse
Right.
God and give up and die? Or are we going to turn to the one who can empower us and teach us, and we can learn the lesson maybe that needs to come from these bitter pills that we have to swallow. Deb, I buried two sons. My mom died when I was a young girl. I buried two children. I could have just thrown in the towel there and given up on God and blamed him, for all of my woes, and had a faith crisis and been the end of it. But I actually turned to him, and he helped make sense of it. And he helped
Yeah.
over time. In the process of time, he heals the heart. I have found that if we don't give up on God during the hard times, you kind of get to that point where you just think it's over. Life is over. You're at the point of ruin. That's where I have learned, if you will just hang in to that point of ruin, is usually right next to the point of miracles. Where the point of ruin ends, the point of miracles begins, and God opens a way and he helps you to make sense of it, and you move forward better
Right.
because of it.
And you also said when we were talking that the other day that calamities show who you are. They
Yeah.
will show who you are and what you will do. You will either run, be upset, moan and cry, or you will just take charge and calmly help others as well as yourself. Devastation will also show you the truth about others. I'm concerned. Where were these officials? What were they really thinking about? Why didn't they plan? Why weren't they thinking about the people who had hired them, which was all the voters? Calamities and devastation will reveal the lies about leaders and those in charge. And that's when it gets real, doesn't it, Julene?
Yeah, yeah. When things fall apart, right? when
Yeah,
when things
yeah,
go unexpectedly or they collapse, our true colors comes out. Governmental leaders, presidents, their true colors come out, and sometimes some of those smoke and mirrors that we hear with a lot of politicians, the rhetoric and so forth. We see when everything collapses, really who is prepared or who was just kind of talking a good game, right, to get elected. And it really makes me want to be the real deal, to be an integritous person with the right intentions, to be based on principle, and to, do what I say and say what I do. And we're seeing, sometimes some of these political leaders, their egos are writing checks their bodies can't cash, kind of thing, and
yeah,
and
yeah.
they're in it
Yes.
for the wrong reason, and we're seeing some of the layers stripped off of California leadership, and it's not pretty. It's
No, it's,
heartbreaking.
I know that God can take matters into his hands anytime he wants. There are so many examples in the Bible where God said, "That's enough, everybody out of the pool." He's done with that. But seriously, I don't believe he does that a lot. And in this circumstance, I don't believe, because I've heard some people say this, I don't believe that he's punishing California. I do believe that people didn't do their jobs and they didn't properly prepare. And now we have this great devastation and sorrow, and everyone here and in heaven has to address the sorrow. I'm praying for everyone in California. This should not have happened.
Yeah, and that's the heartache. It could have been so easily snuffed out early on, and devastation, I think, and calamity, when it occurs, I think sometimes it's a good time to rededicate yourself to things that really matter, right, Deb? I mean,
Right.
family, God, relationships, and you make those things your highest priority. Because sometimes, we're down in the weeds of life when we miss the big picture of why we're really here. Someone
Yeah.
said you can have faith or you can have control, but you can't have both. And so, clearly we can't control the calamities and, the hard things that happen in life. You can to some degree. And then, sometimes people are in position or authority over you and they have the control. You can't control them, And so I do think we are all spiritual beings down here having mortal experiences, right? And so when hard things and bad things happen, God helps us to pick up the pieces, right? And
Right.
helps us to kind of, see the bigger picture here with these unexpected tragedies that occur. What's that verse? All things in the New Testament, I think it's in Hebrews, all things will work towards your good and will give you experience
Works
for those
for good.
work
Yeah.
towards your good, those that believe in God. And so I do think that, some of these our biggest problems in life can turn into God ordained opportunities for growth and for miracles, but you got to live in prayer mode because oftentimes it's just going to make you bitter and mad and mean and faithless. And that's not the point, right? When unfair things
Right.
happen. So just yesterday, my husband said our 21-year-old called him. He lives across the country. He plays basketball for a junior college. And this young boy just got a scholarship from Pac-12, a big college that he's going to transfer to from his junior college this year. And he's only got 2 more months left at this junior college playing basketball. So
That's
some of the
amazing.
it,
That's great.
it is amazing. It's so exciting, and so but unfortunately, some of the coaches on his little junior college team now have a bullseye on his back because he's leaving them. And there's some notoriety that has come to him because he's moving on to a really big program. And so they're treating him not very kind or unfairly or really picking on him. And he called dad and it just reminds me as we turn to dad, as we turn to God, Dad helped him to see the bigger picture here and to resist the urge to blame and to see the bigger picture at play, right? If he hadn't have gone to that small little college that was very close to this big university, they might not have even been made aware of him. And Dad just helped him to see some of the
Yeah.
blessings. But, that's what God does. As we turn to him, he helps us to see maybe the bigger picture when our hearts are broken or things haven't gone our way.
I agree with that. And I was just thinking about one of the best examples of getting through the hard times. I think the movie is called I Still Believe. Is it Jeremy Camp? I watched the movie and he married just a wonderful girl and they were doing great things together. And I think he's a singer or she was a singer, one of the two. It's been a long time since I watched it, but she died with cancer. And he went through, and very young, before they could have children. And he went through terrible times saying, why God? Why God? We're doing this work for you. Why? Why? And he kept believing and kept trying to pray and do the right thing. And she still passed. But he learned through it that through the whole process, God was there with him. God was helping him. God was helping both of them to be stronger and to get through it. And I think when you look at calamities only as how they affect you and not how they affect your life or other people in your life and what you can do to make that life better, you really miss the point of how God wants us to go through this journey that we're on. Don't you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah. For sure. And, it really teaches you empathy for others when you too have had, the wind knocked out of you, when you've lost people you've loved or lost homes or had hard things, because otherwise you might, I don't know, like be kind of jaded or hardened, if things always go your way. So I think God has all of us have stumbles and heartaches because then it helps us to be empathetic and be able to help heal and to help nurture people that will come in our way inevitably in life. And we'll say, I know a little bit about how you're feeling because I've been there myself,
Exactly.
and so then that's how you can see that the heartache that you've experienced has worked towards your good because now you're going to be able to help other people out of their holes, and out of their
Right,
heartache.
right. You know what, Julene? We may go a few minutes over, but that's okay because I think this needs to be said. You are 100% right. I have done counseling and I worked within the church and I've done coaching and all of that. And I have also counseled several women that were raped. And the first one that I was trying to help, I met her every week for 3 weeks. I did everything I could. I was compassionate. I was kind. I tried to get her to talk to me, and she was just so closed off, completely closed off. And I started praying, God, help me. What can I do? How can I help her? And I knew an older lady in the church that had been raped when she was younger. And I went up to her and I said, Karen, can you help me? Can you meet with this lady? And you just cannot imagine what happened when Karen walked in the room and the other young lady, I introduced them and I said, I wanted you to talk to her for a few minutes because she was raped when she was about your age.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. The light went on. The two of them started talking just back and forth. I basically went back to my seat, just sat there and folded my arms and just watched. And it was the best session that we had had. And after that session, I had Karen come back a couple of times, but we went forward with speed because she now had that person she could lock arms with. She now had that person that was there with her. So I want to encourage our listeners that if you get into a devastation point, a depressing point, a difficult point, then consider it a chance to find someone that can help you, but also that you can use that experience to help others. What do you think?
Yeah. All these things shall give you experience and work towards your good and work towards other people's goods as well, And so I hear you. I hear you. In the meantime, Deb, I just want you to know that my dress is in place. I hate to go from something
Yay!
serious to something a little lighter, but my Cinderella dress, I
Yes.
put together. The little mice have been helping me, and I think I'm going to be looking okay for the ball. And the swearing in, you can show up on the mall at 5 a.m. They'll let you in because you're going to have to go through security like hundreds of thousands of people.
Okay.
So the swearing in doesn't start till 11:30. So I'm trying to think of ways I'm going to stay warm as I stand for a couple hours. And then the swearing in will begin at 11:30, and hopefully it'll just go for about an hour. And then President Trump and his family and some of the leadership will go eat lunch in the Capitol, and then they will come out and go down Pennsylvania. They'll walk some of it. Pennsylvania Avenue goes from the Capitol to the White House. And then there'll be marvelous bands and military, shows. And I think it's going to be really kind of a joyful, fun event. In fact, I just read that the permits for protests are down. There's not as many permits. So maybe there won't be as many grumpy, angry protesters out there this year. Maybe the, 30-degree weather will do them in. But I was just remembering that one president went too long, the ninth president in 1841. Do you remember William Harrison? He was only the president for 1 month. William Harrison.
Yes. Didn't he pass away or?
Yes, because he got sick during his almost 2 hour talk in front of the Capitol. He was kind of an older dude, so he
Oh
wanted to
no.
prove to his naysayers that he was fit for the job. So he actually rode a horse to the Capitol without his overcoat or a hat and stood at the podium for almost 2 hours and died like a month later of pneumonia that he caught. So I'm hoping Trump is, not going to go for 2 hours and
Oh
will have
my
his overcoat
goodness.
and his hat on. But I think it's going to be kind of fun. I will let you know.
Yeah. Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't they at first have it in April and then they moved it back to January because they didn't want that to wait that long?
Yeah, they did, because in the olden days, it took when won the presidency, some of them were taking the buggy and the horses and packing up their house and traveling across multiple states to get there. And so it just took longer. Nowadays we call the moving company and we're almost there the next day. But I mean, Abraham Lincoln, when he was the 16th president, and he still had to pack up his house in Springfield and put all his belongings on the train. He took the train to Washington, D.C. So it just took longer in those days. And so they just, allocated more time to get to the White House.
Oh my goodness. Well, answer a trivia question for me. Why did they have the president put his hand on the Bible?
Oh, that is because beautiful George Washington did. I mean, when he was sworn in at Federal Hall in New York City, right there in the Wall Street. Have you ever been there, Deb, on Wall Street at Federal Hall? Well, the Bible that George Washington put his hand on when he was sworn in as president is still there. But, the interesting thing is that Bible, and several presidents after that have used that Bible to be sworn in on. But when George Washington got there at Federal Hall that day, they realized they had no Bible. And so one of the masters of the Masonic Lodge nearby ran and got the Bible there. And George Washington was a Mason too. And so he put his hand on Genesis 49, I think, which is very significant too. And then when he was sworn in, they closed the Bible, and then reports say he kissed the Bible and said, "So help me God." And that's not in the oath in the Constitution, but since that time, every president has followed George Washington's suit to uphold the Constitution and this government. So help him God, before the eyes of God and the angels of heaven. He was going to do this. And so it's a beautiful tradition that we have. President Trump, when he was sworn in the first time, put his hands on Lincoln's Bible, the Bible that Lincoln used, and his family Bible. So it was two Bibles. So it'll be interesting to see what Trump uses again. But Obama used that Lincoln Bible as well. He was sworn in on the Lincoln Bible.
So the presidents get to pick the Bible they want to use?
They get to pick, like George W. Bush, 43, used his family Bible, and Nixon used not one, but two of his family Bibles. And so they get to choose. So Trump chose Lincoln's Bible and a family Bible. So he was sworn in on two Bibles. And I'm not sure. I couldn't find which Bible Biden used. I'm sure he used a Bible, but that wasn't, I couldn't find it. So I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
But my husband was actually a state senator. And when he was sworn in, we took our large family Bible. And when we were there before the Senate, I'll never forget the President Senate quietly whispered, "Oh, you're going to do that Bible thing?" And I almost looked at him like,
my goodness.
"Yeah, we're going to do the Bible thing." And my husband. Yeah. So I just think all it takes is one man to do something really awesome. And look how, elected officials have followed suit from George Washington's beautiful example.
Yeah. Well, I love that. And you can tell by up here on my shelves, I have Bibles from my parents, Ron's parents, our grandparents. So I have a lot of Bibles up there that I'll take them down, and I just love opening them up, and they kind of smell like the person, or the person's written in the side or underlined verses. I think it's a neat thing.
Oh, who knows? Maybe one of your grandkids are going to use one of those big Bibles up there to be sworn in someday as, the president of the United States or something. But how beautiful. I mean, I dare say that's one reason we got to have Bibles in the house, make sure everyone has a Bible.
Yeah, really. Well, you'll find a lot in this house. And
And
Julene, thank you.
yeah, I was going to say, besides having a Bible, make sure you're opening it and reading from it. Good heavenly days. But yeah, go
Yes,
ahead, Deb.
every day. Well, I just wanted to compliment you. I really love your knowledge of history, and thank you for
Uh,
filling us in. So, Julene, today, what is your tip?
I think if you want to see God and to like really seize those God ordained opportunities and learn to see from the tragedies and calamities and heartbreak, learn to see them in a new way, right? Maybe see them in God's way. And I think in order to be able to do that, we have to live in prayer mode. And when you're in prayer mode, you're asking God to make sense of, why this is happening. And I just love that verse in James that said, if any of you lack wisdom, ask of me and I'll give it to you. I'll give you understanding it and I'll give it to you liberally. And so live in prayer mode so we can make sense of the hard times in our life.
Oh, that's great. That is terrific. We don't share these ahead of time, but we are always just right there in sync, baby doll. So my tip today is to evaluate yourself. We normally don't do that very often, but if you want to survive some life-changing event, prepare ahead of time, and that means evaluating yourself ahead of time. Now, I'm a counselor and a coach. Most every life-altering change in our personal world, or that I have seen with people I've talked to, can and does have the possibility to send us into depression or some other mental issue unless we are prepared. And what I mean by being prepared ourselves is that we know what we're going to do during a calamity. So practice doing the right thing. When we know that we can and must do the right thing, like reading our Bible, listening to good music, whatever it is you picked out to help you get through a calamity, then it's easier to function during disaster, like catching a baseball. Our hand will move outward, our eyes will fixate on the ball, and we catch it. Well, you have to practice that so that instinct for being good through a calamity will take over. Because we have practiced our faith, like you said, Julene, our compassion, our will to go on. Evaluate yourself and be prepared. And the best preparation is just what Julene said. It is to know Jesus and trust him for your safety in your life. Yes, yes, yes. Well, thank you for being with us today. Subscribe to this podcast and join us again when we discuss fresh topics. You can ask a question or request that we dig into a specific topic by writing to me, Debbie at debbiejansen.com. Thanks again to our producer, Ken Jansen. This is Debbie Jansen, and I'm sticking to the truth.
And I'm Julene Jackson, and we hope that you will keep sticking to the truth. Till next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.